And these things have been done in our name. And if you actually look, and I've made this point, I may be right or I may be wrong, I think the moment at which the MPs started to fill their boots was at the moment when Elizabeth Filkin was effectively dismissed from her job. It was an assisted departure. And a great deal of questioning should attach to how that happened, to the then Speaker, to the House of Commons Commission, of which an MP not far from here was a member, of the repeated attempts to prevent the Freedom of Information Act from applying to MPs' expenses, from the motions that were moved in the House of Commons and supported by the House of Commons authorities and the government and the leaders of all parties to prevent MPs' addresses being known. When I was an MP, people knew where I lived. A degree of discomfort goes with the job. But I don't think secrecy is in anyone's interest. And we have learned. There's a very good and wonderful MP called Dr. Tony Wright. He's the Labour MP for Cannock Chase, near Birmingham. And he is the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. And after the dismissal of Elizabeth Filkin, he appeared before the Committee on Standards in Public Life, and he warned them that the next scandal coming over the horizon was about MPs' expenses. And he said it has to be dealt with now. It wasn't dealt with now. It wasn't dealt with in the years that followed. It wasn't dealt with even after the warning signals were sounded when Derek Conway, Ted Heath's successor as MP for Sidcup, was found to have paid his two sons more than £40,000 with no evidence that they did any work for it. The Committee on Standards in Public Life was told that we'll sort it out. And they didn't sort it out. They didn't sort it out until the sky fell in. And when the sky fell in, they said all we were doing was within the rules. I don't know if you saw any of those amazing editions of Question Time in Springer. Wow. My favourite was Eric Pickles. Eric Pickles, actually I'm rather fond of Eric because he has changed his view as a result of what he called his car crash on Question Time. Because I stood against him in 2001 and I very nearly won. And I was just a private bloke. I was way ahead of the Lib Dems and Labour. I fell short by 2,500 votes, and I'm quite pleased I didn't beat him because he's been quite good since. But that night, this is a guy who represents, he lives in Brentwood, he represents thousands of commuters. Did he commute himself? Oh no, not at all. Because he had to be at committee meetings in the House of Commons at 9:30 in the morning. That did not go down well with the people of Brentwood. And you may remember Margaret Beckett's performance. She of the hanging plants. In 4 years, dear sweet Margaret charged over £1,000 to us, the taxpayers, for hanging plants and potted plants. You can imagine what her house must have looked like. And I remember going back to my little cottage in Great Budworth, and in my last year as MP, and must have been in June 2000, in the Millennium Fete in the village of Mere, I bought a hanging plant for £15,000. £15. What did it happen? You see, it's the dream of getting rich that haunts me. And I hang it outside my little cottage in Great Budworth, and for the whole summer it adorned the place. And when I was away, it was watered by a lovely man from across the road, the village sexton who had family ties to a supporter of Neil Hamilton. So it was thus a cross-party, multi-party hanging plant. Its blooms were red and yellow and blue and pink and purple and white. It represented every known political party. I felt it should have had a place in Hansard. Did Margaret Beckett's hanging plants have a place in Hansard? But it never occurred to me I could charge it to you, the taxpayer. I think this is what has happened. And I think we've got a hold of this. It is a symbol of something else that is going on in our politics. Let me take you back to 1855, which I probably remember better than you do. In 1855, John Bright, the great Quaker and reformer from Rochdale, stood up in the House of Commons and he said, "There is growing, and no one regrets it more than I do, a feeling of anger and bitterness against that class which has for a long period conducted the public affairs of this country." Then as now, he was speaking at a time of recession in the new manufacturing industries and of an unpopular war, the one in Crimea. He said, "The angel of death is abroad in the land," and you can almost hear the beating of his wings. Now as then, the angel of death is abroad in the land. There is not a community that hasn't been affected by the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I'm not going to comment on the war in Afghanistan because I'm not sure in my own mind about it. But then as now, we have a political class which is separate from the people. Now it is not the manufacturers and the landowners. It is kids who leave the two same universities, Oxford and Cambridge, and they're well connected, and they find jobs in political parties, working for MPs as special advisors or in party offices, and in no time at all, if they're lucky and clever, they will land themselves a safe seat. And they will have moved from one set of cloisters in Balliol College or King's College to another set of cloisters in the Palace of Westminster, and they will have never have had a proper job. And I think we are all suffering as a result. And you find this, to return to the military, most acutely in the matter of war and peace. The decision, I could say this in a church because it's a moral thing. The decision to take the country to war in Iraq was the worst decision made by a British government in my lifetime by far. It was John Reid, one of the 6 new Labour Defence Secretaries, and this also is in the book I'm not promoting, who observed that he hoped, this was in 2006, that the British troops could complete their mission in Afghanistan and return without firing a single shot. As of now, they have fired 12 million. My friends in the Royal Anglian Regiment fired 1 million, and 150,000 of those has come from the helicopter gunships. And I think, to an extent, the lessons that were learned from Vietnam, and I'm old enough to have served there, are the same lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan.